Hello everyone, welcome to Laksha's Daily Launch. Today we're going to talk about an important and an interesting part of human physiology. Any guesses? Write them down in the comments. Today we're going to talk about the human digestive system. We're going to start with the alimentary canal, which starts from our mouth and ends at the anus, and it consists of the esophagus, stomach, large intestine and small intestine. Large intestine has certain parts, and so does the small intestine, which we're going to talk about in the later part of the video. And along with this alimentary canal, which is the major part of the digestive system, we also have certain accessory glands or accessory organs without which digestion would not take place. These accessory glands or accessory organs are not connected to the alimentary canal in any way other than they're directly connected to probably the small intestine, based on where the substance that's secreted by them needs to go. That's where they're connected to, but they are not a complete part of the alimentary canal. And these parts or these organs are liver, pancreas and the gallbladder. First we're going to start with the functions of these three organs, and then we're going to talk about the rest of the alimentary canal, how the digestion takes place, certain keywords, and the complete process of food, the complete pathway the food follows in our body. Okay, and we're also going to talk about the difference between excretion and ingestion, which is very important. Let's get started. We'll start with liver. So what's the function of liver? Liver produces bile juice, which is used for digestion. Now this bile juice that's produced needs to be stored somewhere. Where is it stored? In the gallbladder. The gallbladder stores the bile juice and concentrates it and sends it whenever it has to. Whenever the bile is to be used, it transports it. And what do the pancreas secrete? Pancreas secrete pancreatic juice, which is again used in digestion, and certain bicarbonates. Where do these bicarbonates come into play? How do they help? We're going to talk about it when we talk about digestion of carbohydrates, the chemical decomposition of carbohydrates in the small intestine. Now let's talk about the parts of the alimentary canal, starting with the esophagus, then comes our stomach, then comes small intestine, then the large intestine, which has the anus. It ends at the anus, starts in our mouth and ends at the anus. Now, food needs to go down our food pipe or the esophagus. How does it go down? The food does not glide down our esophagus. There are certain muscle contractions that happen in the esophagus which pushes the food down. And these wave-like muscle contractions, rhythmic wave-like muscle contractions are called peristalsis. So if anyone asks you the definition of peristalsis or what is peristalsis, if anyone asks you this, it is the rhythmic wave-like contraction and expansion of muscles, of the alimentary canal muscles. These muscles are there all over the esophagus and the stomach as well. Why? Because the stomach churns the food along with the gastric juices acting upon the food. It also churns the food, which is mechanical digestion. Chemical digestion is basically the gastric juices acting upon this, along gastric juices, bile juice and the pancreatic juice. When they act on, that's chemical. That's chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion is like peristalsis, pushes the food down. It's like wave. This contracts, it pushes the food. Again, it contracts, it pushes the food. This is peristalsis, and it happens all through the alimentary canal. Okay, and yes, in our stomach there are certain gastric juices, hydrochloric acid. This hydrochloric acid is produced by the walls of our stomach, by the gastric walls, whenever required. And why does a gastric reflux happen? That's when you have no food in your body and there's way too much of gastrointestinal juice that has to come up. You need to get rid of that. It's an excess amount. You can't have your stomach so acidic. You need to get it out. Now let's talk about the parts of the small intestine and the large intestine. Starting with the small intestine, we first have duodenum, which is the connection between the stomach to the small intestine. It's a part of the small intestine. Duodenum. Then we have jejunum and ileum. Well, these are just parts of the small intestine. We will not be going into its details and the functions of each of these. Okay, and then we have the parts of the large intestine. One is the colon, which is like the center part of the large intestine. Then we have cecum, and then we have rectum, and that's the anus. What does rectum do? It stores the fecal matter or the fecus, and anus excretes it out. We're not going to go in detail about colon and system because colon has 3 more parts for which we need a detailed explanation, so we'll probably save that for next time. And yes, these are the parts of the intestines, both the intestines. We talked about pancreas and liver. Now let's talk about the process of digestion. Now let's focus on carbohydrates. I'll post other videos and fun shots on the digestion of lipids and fats, however, lipids which are fats and proteins. For now, let's focus on carbohydrates. So in our mechanical digestion and chemical digestion, both of them start in our mouths. Digestion, this process on a whole, starts in our mouth. When we chew the food, it's mechanical digestion. When our saliva mixes with the food that we're having, that's chemical digestion. So before we get into these details, I have to tell you about bolus and chyme. Bolus is the chewed material of food, like a chewed chunk of food or a ball of food that goes down to the esophagus, to the stomach. So just chewed, mechanically digested. You can say that mechanically digested, or the chewed ball of food that goes down the esophagus for further digestion is called bolus. And what's chyme? It's the semi-fluid structure which is it's a mixture. It's a semi-fluid mixture that is hydrochloric acid, then bolus, which is the food particles and other gastric juices, and is moving into the rest of the parts, like the small intestine or the large intestine from the stomach. And one most important thing is that digestion does not take place in the large intestine. It takes place majorly in the stomach and the small intestine, starting from our mouth. Even on our mouth, because our salivary glands help a lot. By the way, what are the 3 salivary glands? Any idea? Post them in the comments. We're going to check who got them right. At the end of the video, I'll give you the answers. I'll give you the name of the 3 salivary glands. Okay? So there we make the bolus in our mouth by chewing and saliva secretions. We're done. Then it goes down the esophagus through peristalsis. It goes down to our stomach. After it goes down to our stomach, there are many gastric juices that act upon this food and make it chyme. The second keyword that we learned today. And here, our body can only flow in one direction. It's all unidirectional. Your veins go in one direction. Your arteries go in one direction. There's nothing that has dual direction, like it has 2 directions. No, everything is unidirectional. So there are certain, you can call them muscles or just certain sphincters which prevent the reverse flow of food in our body while it is being digested. Okay, so first we need to prevent the backward flow of food from the stomach to the esophagus, or it's just going to come up, right? That is called the cardiac sphincter. This prevents the food from coming from the stomach back into the esophagus. So that's not safe for us, right? And you might be asking, what about the refluxes that happen, or the vomitings? That happens when certain matter has to be removed and your body has accepted it, that this food is not good for you right now. Your body is not able to handle it, and you need to get it out of your system before it goes and creates any more complication. That's when the sphincter itself opens and allows the food to come up, and that's how you throw up. That's the phenomenon behind vomitings, and it is not a normal phenomenon. Just let me tell you that. Okay, then in the stomach, so our mouth has certain enzymes, the salivary enzymes, which act on the carbohydrates that we're eating. The more you chew, the easier it is for your gut to handle it. If you don't chew enough, then you won't give enough time for the saliva to actually act on the carbohydrates that you're chewing. So all the work will be done by your gut, all of it will be done by your stomach only. Stomach as in the small intestine. Why doesn't anything happen in the stomach? We're going to talk about that in just a bit. So enzymes are sensitive to 2 things, pH and temperature. These are 2 things that the enzymes that are working in our body are sensitive to. Any of these change and are not as per the certain enzymes requirements, they will stop working. They'll simply stop working. So our mouth is neutral. pH level is neutral. So the salivary gland, the enzyme that it secretes, is also neutral. It works in our mouth. But then as we gulp it and it goes to our stomach, in our stomach it's highly acidic. Why? Because of the gastric juices, hydrochloric acid. We cannot have an enzyme that works in a neutral environment, neutral pH, to work in an acidic pH, as only because that's sensitive to it. So our stomach is acidic. It cannot work in those conditions. So the digestion of carbohydrates or the breakdown of carbohydrates is just halted over there. Nothing happens. Carbohydrates are not digested exactly or absorbed by our body in the stomach. But when we move from the stomach to the small intestine, again the process of the breakdown of carbohydrates starts again, and there is a enzyme, the pancreatic enzyme that is released, which helps in the digestion of carbohydrates. But you may ask again, how did the pH level change from the stomach, which is acidic, to basic in the small intestine? I mentioned one small thing in our short about the juice that pancreas release. Along with their juice, they release one kind of substance. If you've watched the short, then you should be able to answer this. Do write down in the short. It's basically our pancreas, along with pancreatic juice, release bicarbonates. So these bicarbonates make our small intestine alkaline, and this pancreatic enzyme works on the carbohydrates and gets the work done. So what are these carbohydrates converted to? They're converted to maltose, for which there's another process for their right absorption. Why? Because maltose is a disaccharide. For our body to absorb any carbohydrate or any sugar, it needs to be monosaccharide. How does maltose convert from disaccharide to monosaccharide? We'll talk in our next video. If you learned something new today and you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Lakshya's Learning Launch. And if you have any questions, anything you think I've missed, then do write them down in the comments, and I will be sure to answer your questions. See you next time.